Hello again. Thank you so much for coming. I wanted to talk to you today about being a parent. Now, the last video I talked about was Taseko Lake Lodge, and we were very isolated. Well, we continued these isolated jobs for years after that. We would do one, we did Taseko Lake, and then we went back to Quesnel, and then we did one called Yoheda Wilderness Experience, which was even further isolated. Went back to Quesnel, and then we were sort of getting into this headspace of change, and for me especially, I enjoyed the wilderness, I enjoyed the things out there, but I didn't feel fulfilled still. I was not really following what I felt was my true path, my true purpose. So I had this yearning for connecting with somebody at a level of unconditional love. And, as much as Mike and I loved each other and connected and did these things, really deep things together, I still felt lonely. I still felt empty. I still felt like there was things missing. And I always thought that it was because I wanted children. So, year after year, I would say, I want kids. And he was never ready. He was the oldest of 3, and then they had multiple adopted and foster kids. Like, he was the oldest of probably 10 at a time. So he just didn't want kids. And I really was missing something. And I was at that point where I was really looking for that love outside of myself, instead of looking within. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I was always looking without. And so we got to this one place, and it was called Elkin Creek Ranch, and again, it was more for him than me. He was really good with horses, really good. He was a great hunter, he was a great outdoorsman, and I was sort of just the tag along. So, I got to go to these places, but I never got the best positions available per se. So, anyways, we're there, and the summer's going, and I'm not loving it. And so I get to a point where I'm just done. And so it gets very heated one night, and I say, you know what, I'm leaving Elkin, and I'm leaving you. I can't do this anymore. So it was a very, very emotional little while. It had been working up to that for a few months, or probably a few years, actually, to be honest. So after it got really heated, he took me back to Quesnel. He was honoring that I quit. And we got to Quesnel, and he said, "What's going on? What's it going to take for you to stay with me and to try and make this work a little bit more?" And I said, "Well, this is the truth. I want kids. So I'm going to say either you have kids with me or I'm going to have kids with somebody else." And that was my ultimatum. And I don't even think that I realized what I was asking of him. I was asking him for him to do something that he didn't want to do. So how could I expect him to fully step into something that he didn't want? But he did say, yes, okay, let's start trying for kids. He really wanted to stay with me. He really wanted to make it work, and that's one thing that he was very well known for, is to never give up. And that can, in my eyes, that can be a good thing, and it can also be not such a good thing, when things aren't working and it seems like such a struggle all the time. I believe that there's other things, that the universe is telling us that there's other things to explore, other thoughts, other feelings, other opportunities. But we continued on that path, and in doing that, he moved back to Quesnel with me, and then he decided, okay, he needs more of a stable income. So he thought, well, he was going to go and do a farrier course, which was 5 months. Probably 600 kilometers north of where we were living. And I was working at the mill at that time. So I decided to support him, pay for the rent of the house, look after the horses, and support him while he went away for training. Well, he was gone 5 months. I think I saw him twice the whole time. We talked a lot on the phone, but I didn't actually see him at all. Twice I saw him. And the second time, I remember it so clearly that I decided that I was going to go. March 2nd was 2001, and I told all of the girls at the mill that I was going to go to Smithers and get pregnant. And everyone laughed and thought that was funny, and I said, no, this is it. Like, I'm going to go, and we're going to make a baby, and I'm going to get pregnant, I'm going to be a mom. And, I've been known to manifest pretty well. I set my intention of what I want, and I normally get it. And sure enough, this time, got pregnant. And so then started the journey of like getting ready to be a mom. And so I think he was really nervous. Of course, he didn't really want this again, but I really did. And I, honestly could not stand being pregnant. I was nauseous. I never did puke, but I felt terrible. My body felt terrible all through the stages. I just did not like it. But it got closer and closer, and as it creeped closer to December, which is when it was the due date, I started living with my mom and moved in there, and she was sort of taking care of me, and then he would come and go, kind of going back and forth to the lodge. And it got to be about a week before my baby was due, and I went to the hospital, and I'm looking around and I'm asking the nurses, where do I go when this happens? What room do I go to? What do I do? And they were shocked, because here's this woman that is now like ready to pop, and they've never seen me before. I never went to any prenatal classes. I never went to any doctor's appointments. I had my monthly exam. I did do that, so I was a little responsible. I wanted my baby to be safe and healthy. But other than that, I was just like, okay, let's just do this. So they sort of showed me around a little bit, and I went back to my mom's. And the day before she was due to be had, I started to feel the contractions, and things started to happen a little bit. And about midnight is when my water broke, and things really started to happen. And so I went to the hospital, and I had barely dilated, so it was a lot of walking the halls. And my sister and Mike were there with me, and we were walking and joking, and then I get contractions, and it just went hour after hour after hour, and my body was not cooperating very well. So we kept checking. They didn't want me to go anywhere because it was happening, but now comes noon. It's now been 12 hours that I've been walking and pacing and having contractions, and nothing's really happening. And so I think it was probably about 1 o'clock the doctor came in, and we started to do different things, and to push different ways, and to actually see if I could get my body to fully dilate and to cooperate with this pregnancy and this birth. And it never really seemed to. So I think there was a point where the doctor was going to start pulling with the clamp and the really getting in there. I had gotten there, and they wanted to give me painkillers, and between being extremely stubborn and high tolerance of pain, I didn't allow them to give me anything. And so here I am, now into 13, 14 hours of contractions, and I still don't want any medication, any painkillers. The doctor, I think, was starting to get concerned, and he was saying that, if it takes too long, we have to do C-section. And I was like, no way, this has to be natural. Let's, do whatever it takes. Let's get this baby out. And so we started to do these different things. And, when you look at your doctor and he's just pouring with sweat, it's nerve-wracking for sure. I could see how much stress he was under and how worried he was. And my body just wasn't responding properly. And I think at the end I probably only dilated, 8 of the 10 centimeters. I never did fully dilate. And so when I started pushing and he started pulling, it started, ripping at me pretty good. And it was really painful. And so finally, 17 hours later, she comes out, and they were really worried about her because she was so compact. She was only 20 centimeters long, but she was, 9.5 pounds. So she was really thick and solid. So when they pulled her out, they were worried about her shoulders being dislocated, and they were worried about her health. So they scooched her away. And, when you see in the movies how they, take out the baby and they put it to the mom's chest, I didn't get any of that. They just took her away, and I didn't even get to touch her or see her. But I was really comfortable and relaxed. There was no more pain. It was just, I was just laying there finally in ease. So I wasn't really complaining. And so they did all this stuff with her, and then they took her out of the room, and Mike went with her, and you know, there was seemed to be all this time that went by that was spent on her, and I was just laying there. And so finally the doctor comes back to me, and he goes to pull away the oh, I'm on an ant's hill. Yeah, I got ants all over me. Anyways, so I'll just stand back further. He comes back to me, and I guess what he had taken like a big pad, and he'd placed it inside or up to me to just kind of hold everything. And when he let that go, I guess a massive gush, I guess is what was explained to me, of blood had poured out. So then there was this new panic of, you know, me hemorrhaging. And so he worked on me for quite a while. There was quite a bit of stitching and stuff to being done, and I'm laying there, and it's just him and I, and you know, Mike's still off with baby and my mom, and you know, I'm starting to not feel very good, and I can't even explain it, but it was just an unknown feeling to me. I didn't know what I was going through, and I was kind of, I think, probably in shock, you know, after all of this. And so he finishes what he does, and the nurses come in, and they're sort of trying to clean stuff up, you know. I'm guessing it's probably a mess, and at this point I think Mike came back in, and they take me, and they're lifting me up, and they're making me sit in this wheelchair. And so I'm like, okay. And I guess because it was such a mess or whatever, they just wanted to get me out of there. So they sit me in this chair, and there's not even a rest for my feet. Like, my feet are on the ground. They didn't put the things to put my feet up on. So I have to lift my own feet up. And as they turn, I look over at the table, and they had brought me some toast. So I grab a piece of toast, and I am slowly starting to like chew on this toast, because inside I know that I am like losing it. I am getting nauseous. I'm getting lightheaded. I can't speak. I can barely function. And they take me out of the room, and they just turn me in to go down the hall, and I see my brother sitting there, and I sort of look at him to say hi, but I don't really even acknowledge him very much, because I'm concentrating on keeping myself together. And so we get into this room, and I think it was a room of 3 beds or 4 beds, and I remember being wheeled in and backed up against the wall, and then it was blackness. And I just remember it being very empty, very void of anything. It just was just this place of silence, peace, nothingness, really. And yeah, I don't really know how long I was gone for, but I was awoken by Mike shaking me, standing me up and shaking me and saying, Karen, Karen, come back. And what had happened is I don't know if I died or if I just passed out for sure. He said that I died. My eyes were open, and I was sitting there, and I was staring, and I was gone. And it's very traumatic for him for sure. But I did come back. And I was laid down in the bed, and I just said, can I have my baby? And my mom was holding her at the time, and she runs over, of course, and she brings me over my baby, and I felt I felt this connection and love to her in this way that I can't explain, as a mother. Um, but I often think about, how important it is for mothers to get their baby right when they're born, like skin to skin. And, I think that probably would have helped me more to stay alive and to not have fallen into whatever I fell into. And yeah, it was a lot. And so I was there. I was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, recovering. They were really watching me after that happened. The doctors came storming in. He was so angry at the nurses, and I got a private room, with my private bathroom, and they watched me very intently. So I think it was a real close call, and it was terrifying, but it was also a gift. All these times that things happen to me, it just feels like it's another invitation to be more present, to be more in the moment, to be more in love of life, to be more grateful for what I have, because of these times that I get close to death. It just feels like it's a blessing to not have gone down that way, that path. So a week. This little baby's a week old, and we're living so isolated. I think we're probably 3 hours out of the closest town. And I bring this little baby, and it's December, and it's just a matter of keeping the house warm and keeping the baby safe and feeding it and learning how to be with candlelight. I didn't even have power at night, and learning how to take care of her and be with her. And as she grows older, I just feel so grateful that I was gifted this opportunity to be a mom. And so a year and a half goes by, and I'm thinking, she deserves to have a sibling. She deserves to not be out here all by herself, to be growing up with someone else. So I said to Mike, we need to have another now, or I'm not going to. And so we made that decision to have another baby. And it was so different. We were still very isolated, and I went and stayed with my mom again. And this time, my son was born within 4 hours of me getting there. It was so fast, and my body cooperated. It's like it knew what to do this time. And so then I had two babies, and we were isolated, but it was, Mike was working a lot, every day, but the three of us just were together every day, all day, and we danced together, and we drew together, and we played together. And we didn't live with the most money or the most stuff, but we had each other, and it was so beautiful. It was what I always wanted, and I felt so blessed to have these two little monkeys in my life. And I always tried to make decisions that was best for them. And as a parent, I think that we really need to do that. They're brought here, and they need to be supported. And I really believe that I was not going to have them go to daycare or go to babysitters. I was going to be the one to be there with them and for them. And I did that successfully for quite a few years. I mean, there was a few years at the end that I had to work and get on with stuff, but I really treasure every moment of that. There were really tough times, not gonna lie. I had a lot of things that I was going through, with Mike and with myself, and the struggles that I had. But I always was so connected to what they needed. And my daughter was dealing with some stuff as she got older, and she wasn't very content with life. And I remember before she was a teenager, I was like, okay, like, how do I help her? How do I help her? And the message came to me, help her by helping yourself. And so I was like, wow, like that is true. I'm going to I'm going to spend time now and I'm going to learn a better diet so that my digestive system is better. And I'm going to read some books and get more motivated and get more positive and find the way. And it was, going through a lot of stuff. It was actually my daughter who would come to me and say, no, that's not right. You're wrong here. And don't ever do that again. And I was like, wow, like, thank you so much for telling me that, having the courage to tell me that I was wrong, and for me to be able to say, yes, you're right, and thank you, and you are my biggest teacher. Kids can be such great teachers of ours if we just listen. We just listen and pay attention. They have so much to offer. And I just love it. So even today, I'm so grateful for my kids and what they've brought for me and helped me find me and be the best me I can be. I continually say this, like, our kids are our future and we have to listen to them and see what they need and see what they want, because that's the beauty of it. This world we're going to leave and they're going to still be here, right? So let's do that for them. Let's eat better. Let's live better. Let's take care of our planet better. Like, do we really need to eat like so many meals with meat? And like, I just saw a video that said that there was like 2.6 trillion animals killed yearly for human consumption. So I mean, is that really necessary? Like, do we want to keep going on this road just because we think it's what's best for us, when we're not really looking at what's best for the planet, for the whole, for everyone, right? So, we're going to leave them with less. Look at this beautiful garden and this beautiful place here in Canada. The skies are blue. The sun is beautiful on my skin. And I would just love for that to be here for our children's children's children. Let's do that. Let's love life and love each other and help every creature, every part, every tree, and be in love and connection and gratitude. And that's where I stay, and that's where I think that I'm going to spend the rest of my life, is learning that, teaching that, sharing that. So please join me whenever you feel free. Watch my videos if you choose. Subscribe, like, comment, dislike if you like. I accept them all, being on this platform. And let's just do this thing together and be together. Learn together, grow together, dance together in this thing called life. Thank you so much. Talk soon.